landowners, and so we're well into the consultation phase and looking at land procurement phase of the project. We obviously have to go through a statutory process with a notice of requirement, etc., and resource consents, both with yourselves and Waikato District Council. And so we are anticipating doing that at the same time as we do the notice of requirements. Currently, in terms of funding for the project, we've got funding to do the designation, get resource consents, but what we don't have is confirmed funding or guaranteed funding at the moment for the construction phase of the project. And that's normal for these kind of projects. Because they're such long-term projects, it's perfectly normal for us to go through the procurement phase and the designation phase before we confirm final construction funding. And that also means that as we go through that phase and the consultation process with iwi and community, we can make changes to what the final output looks like and the final shape of things before we confirm what kind of funding is required. So that will be more likely into the 27, 2030 or even 2030 onwards, our long-term funding program before we start to secure that funding. Can I drive the slides from here? Yes, so there's a map up on the screen there, presumably behind me, yes. Just gives you a sense of where the proposed route is relative to the existing state highway. So you see the existing state highway 1 there that moves right down onto, right adjacent to the Waikato River. One of the imperatives for us with this piece of road not only was to make it shorter, but also to move away from the Waikato River. Obviously, when you build a 4-lane highway with all of the associated infrastructure, there are stormwater issues and discharge issues and things to manage, and the further away we can be from Te Awatupua, the better. And so the preferred route is a kind of a mix of how do we make this short, what's the easiest geography, but also can we move away from the Waikato River. In terms of, I guess, the detail, what's anticipated is a grade separated full diamond interchange around Karapiro. So if we go from the north, the details of that are still being worked through. We still don't know what the form of that looks like, but obviously that will be away from the current interchange, and that'll be the point of entry back into the state highway network. And then progressing south, there's a couple of single lane roundabouts required where we intersect with existing roads. And 3 bridges which cross some pretty steep streams as we run through there, compared to the Waikato Expressway component or the current Waikato Expressway component. That's pretty minor, but still not insignificant structures. And so, you know, final design and alignment for those is still to be worked through. There'll be 3 underpasses. And that's where we are interrupting properties so that those properties can continue to function in the sense that they do at the moment for farming. And then a whole lot of associated culverts and other things. And we're working through that at the moment. We've got a working group that meet, well, they meet monthly? Mm-hmm. Yeah, monthly at the moment, just looking at each of those significant pieces of infrastructure. What are the issues that are raised? What kind of consenting are we going to have to go through? What options can we put in place to mitigate any effects from wildlife right through to the practicalities of stormwater, et cetera, et cetera. That team's working really well. I've sat in on a few of the meetings and it's progressing really, really nicely. We have our iwi partner sitting at the table, which is enormously helpful. And so as issues come up, we're able to resolve them pretty quickly. We also have a kind of casual governance oversight group, which we can escalate things to if we need to, but thus far that hasn't really been necessary. Well, I won't call it casual. I shouldn't call it casual. We have a governance group for escalation. I think the other thing I'll talk to, and I don't know if this is, there's the next slide.
May I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just from the map and your comments there that you're talking about a 2 roundabout system, that I presume you're referring to the Karapiro Road and the Hydro Road situation, and having a double round, that would be similar, if you like, to the Tamaheri intersection where you've got a roundabout either side of the highway.
Yeah.
Connecting with those individual roads.
Yeah, that's the idea. And so you can move that local traffic without having to intersect with the state highway traffic.
Yeah, that seems logical.
Yeah,
That's
good.
Thank you.
Obviously, the other key roundabout is State Highway 129. We are currently going through the Environment Court process, unfortunately, for to secure that designation and to move the consents forward. So we're running that process as quickly as we can. Obviously, that's the sort of key first component of this piece of work. So unfortunately, I can't give you a great deal of certainty about timing because of that process, and we're largely in the hands of the court at this point. We're also looking at walking and cycling options. Now, that wasn't part of the original consideration of business case for the expressway, but it's become apparent as we've moved into this that there is both a significant opportunity, but also I think a significant community desire to see some investment while we're doing this work in the walking and cycling potential that it provides. And, to some extent, it makes an awful lot of sense given the investment that's been made in walking and cycling from Cambridge through. We were just talking about this out in the foyer. It's not very long before you'll be able to ride from Cambridge all the way to Nguruwahia off-road in a completely grade separated, beautiful pathway. And of course, you've got the river ride as well. So there's an awful lot of infrastructure there already. Cherie, are you there? Do you want to talk to the walking and cycling work that we have done and the options that we're considering at the moment?
Yep, I can do that.
And I'll go to the next slide.
Thank you. So as we talked about, it's a separate technical assessment type process that's being as an addendum to the DBC, and that was about the opportunity to provide access to all community features by all modes, and not just vehicles and vehicular traffic. So providing another opportunity to walk and cycle. When we started the project, we looked at the area with the yellow line under for consideration of walking and cycling options. So largely from where Hydro and Karapiro roads are through to the 129 intersection, but also on the southern side of the lake to provide a connection to the existing Te Awa link. Just next one down, thanks. So we have been doing a number of workshops so far with a range of stakeholder working group stakeholders from Te Awa to Bike Waikato to Waipa DC and to Waka Kotahi, and sort of range of people involved in those conversations. So the first sort of thoughts and conversations were around what is the design approach that we would like to take when we're thinking about our optioneering process. And that included getting agreement from that stakeholder working group on the user types that we wanted to capture, the form of that facility, the key design requirements and design guidance. And we also, as part of that workshop, had an agreement on how we might evaluate those options as they came through the process. So with that workshop group, we actually developed 6 concept options, which were largely just lines on a plan, holistic high-level concepts as part of that initial workshop. So using GIS, just go back one slide, sorry, thanks. So using GIS, coming up with 6 long list options, we called them. And one was providing a shared path or facility next to the new route that was just discussed in terms of the, like where that route would go through on the northern side of the lake. We had another couple of options north of the lake, so just sitting between the new expressway alignment and the lake, and also using online, using the revoked state highway, what would be the revoked state highway as a facility consideration as well. And then 2 options south of the lake, one that involves a new bridge across the middle, could be any kind of bridge, but just a connection there across the middle close to the reserve areas, and also one that would follow sort of the existing southern alignment and link up to Mangataltri Bridge at the southern end there and go back up to the 129 connection, where there is sort of a 3 connection points for the other trails in the area. So that Horohoro Trail and the Hauraki Trail as well at that roundabout. Thank you. So we went away, a group of specialists, including stakeholder working groups, and worked through our evaluation processes with the criteria that we had agreed, and came up with some shortlist options, some of which are combinations of the long list options. And so that was the option next to the mainline route, the option with a new crossing point in the middle, the southern side to the northern side crossing point, an option that sits on the southern side of the lake all the way along, and an option that combines a sort of local road use or next to local road use along with the use of the revoked state highway. So there's a combination of options still there. And that decisions has just kind of come through just recently with the last round of stakeholder workshops. So that's just some new information there. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Question?
Just hang on. One question.
Sure.
Sorry, Phil.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Sherry, is it?
Sherry, yep.
Sherry, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really exciting. If a bridge went across, what's the narrowest part of the river there? Approximately, where would that be?
Yeah, that's to be determined. So because we've largely just done a line on the plan and it's concept at the moment, our next phase of work is to go into getting some more design elements in place to better understand the risks and effects, constraints and costs. Initial kind of suggestions are that could be a very long bridge across there. Particularly the need to provide, if you're looking at anything from suspension bridge to a concrete to whatever, it is quite wide in certain areas along there. So one of our sort of key inputs into this next phase is to talk to some more specialists about what that might look and feel like, and what are the likely risks and costs and effects of that as well, and where could it possibly be placed. So we're just having that, we'll be doing a site walkover and all that as well. So just trying to get into that next level of refinement is what we're aiming to do in the next few months.
Yeah, and you mentioned also linking it up with Horohoro Road. Is that
the connection at the roundabout, at the 129 roundabout? Yeah. So that's where all three meet at that location. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Very, very exciting.
Okay. So.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Another question?
No, keep going.
Keep going.
Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, like I said, we're really keen to now do that extra work and then talk to and get some more certainty around the sort of location, and then have conversations with affected landowners and the community on that short list of options. And then with all that extra information and detail, we would evaluate those options further and use the consultation feedback and design to determine that preferred way forward. So at the moment, our likely program is getting our preferred route by the end of the year, and that's sort of what we're trying to work to. I think is that it? The last slide on my slides? Yeah, that's it.
Did you have another question?
Yeah, just a quick little question. But none of this cycle track or walking track would be put in place until the extension of the expressway is built. Is that right? Or would you look at be doing it sooner?
So the timing and implementation all has to be determined. Yeah. So because it's part of the evaluation was with that main line being in place to determine what the effects would be. And because of course the traffic would be removed from the old highway and things like that. So we had to do it with the expressway being in place or the new road being in place, but timing is yet to be determined.
Right. Yep. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, just a question for me, looking at those options, it seems that there's only, unless I'm reading them wrong, there's only two of those options that look at kind of taking what is there with the Te Awa River Ride and then extending that through to make a connection with the Waikato River Trails. And I think that certainly has an advantage especially looking at the great New Zealand biking trails and, you know, connecting the river, Te Awa River Ride with the Waikato river trails would really have some fantastic advantages. So if that's a consideration, I'd really put a tick against, you know, making that connection between the two rides. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. And that's definitely part of the process of going through the business cases, looking at those costs and benefits, because each of those options comes with a range of costs, you know, depending on where you go, you more structures, more bridges, more land purchase, trading that off against the benefits, for example, of linking the Te Awa River Road. But there's certainly the intention is to create that continuity. It's part of the attraction of having the option. Yeah.
And part of this project on the Waikato River Trail on Horohoro Road, it stops at that concrete bridge halfway along Horohoro Road.
Yes.
Would you part of this, would you look at extending that along Horohoro Road up to State Highway 1 and up to Pauru roundabout, link it all up together?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Again,
It is.
part of the
On
business case.
Horohoro Road,
Create that link.
on the Horohoro Road. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Just one from me, David, or Jane, is there any plans to, or is there anything we can do to improve that intersection short term at the Karapiro service station? Because that creates a huge amount of public concern for us. It's it's continual and you know, looking at the timeline, if we haven't got another fatality there before the extension's done, I'll be surprised unless we can do something. I just haven't got a clue what we can do, but it's certainly a very dangerous intersection.
We are doing some thinking. I'll get Jane to talk about.
Through the Speed and Infrastructure Program, we're looking at what we can do, and you might have noticed just recently there's been some more medium barriers go in there, and we have taken out one passing lane and another one's to come out as well when we put some extra medium barriers in. But going back from Ferguson Gully Road back to the beginning of the end of the expressway, whichever way you look at it, we are currently just going through the feasibility final stages of that, and we are looking very carefully at what's going to happen at Karapiro. The proposal at the moment, which obviously needs to be approved through this feasibility stage, is a roundabout, a small roundabout. So we will be talking very soon with the as soon as we can.
Yeah, we're acutely aware of the risk in that site.
Yeah, I just want to just express our huge appreciation, and Jim's quite right in raising it, because it's just an ongoing issue for a very good reason. I mean, I manage the domain at Lake Karapiro, and when I'm sending out tens of thousands of visitors, it's just something always on my mind, you know, that is just such a, it's just got a terrible history already. So yeah, appreciation for making this one of your priorities is really, really appreciated. Thank you.
Well, we should be able to bring back the plans to that of what we propose when it's through this final feasibility stage.
We're getting quite a lot of feedback and quite a lot of cooperation too, to be honest, from the freight companies, because for them it's a major concern as well. And so it's quite handy to have their insights as professional drivers into when we throw up a solution and they kind of go, well, yeah, not sure about that. So yeah, we're getting a lot of help, which is good.
Thanks for that, Phil.
Yep, thank you. A question I had for David a few weeks ago that's been buzzing me for a while, and I rang David up and questioned him about it. And you've heard me say before that I feel there's a lot of other intersections around the country that have a lot more safety measures in place. But anyway, a question I had for David and was the intersection of 1B Holland Road and Telephone Road, where you go over the railway line there. And currently it's closed. It's closed for some time, and you sort of indicated that it's probably not actually going to be open, that intersection. But on the Holland Road part of that intersection, there's two big, massive yellow signs saying major intersection ahead. as well as flashing lights. So the question I had for David was that when the Hamilton section is open, that will, the question was, that'll be reverted back to Council Road, Waikato District Council. And could we get those big yellow signboards and the flashing lights and move it to Karapiro? And you thought you hadn't, your response was you hadn't thought of that.
No.
And it was a brilliant idea. So it's been 2 or 3 weeks since we've spoken. You got any feedback on that?
Yeah, no, to be honest, I hadn't thought of it. So yeah, the situation we've got there with 1B at Holland Road is because of the damage multiple times to the railway track. State Highway 1B actually crosses the railway corridor, and it crosses the railway corridor through a license to occupy arrangement with KiwiRail, and KiwiRail have priority from a safety point of view. And they've asked us to have a pretty hard look at whether there is a way we can maintain that road and still have the crossing safe. There's still some water to go under the bridge there. We haven't concluded the investigations, but to be honest, it is quite challenging for us to maintain that crossing with the Great Big Hump in it. And you're right, once State Highway 1 opens, the Waikato Expressway opens, the intent is that will go through the revocation process and ultimately will go back to Waikato District in one form or another. So yeah, when you raised that idea with me, I did put it to the maintenance and operations team, and they sort of scratched their head and said, yep, okay, let's let things play out there, and then absolutely we'll have a think about whether that's actually an option, a viable option or not, because yeah, I mean, why not recycle if we can? So yeah, I've put it to the team. At the moment, as I say, there's a bit of water to go under the bridge with Holland Road and 1B yet. I think in a couple of weeks we've got a meeting or an open day with the public to sort of explore, or at least explain to them the options we've considered there and explore whether they've got anything we've missed.
I mean, they're massive.
Yeah, they're huge signs.
Massive signs, and you could argue that that intersection isn't as major as the Karapiro one. And another example of that, because of that diversion, I was coming back from Woodlands the other day,
Yes.
and I went down Eureka Road, which then met State Highway 26 and went straight ahead onto Hunter Road to go to Taufari and back to Cambridge. And there was a sign as big as a table, dining room table type thing, saying major intersection ahead. And that was Eureka Road. It's a Waikato Road. And another, if you don't mind, I've got.
Well, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Again, it was a thing that we talked about with David. Is coming out of Woodlands Road there back onto the 1B, you've got yellow posts they're creating a lane, and then that lane would then merge with 1B a few hundred meters. So whether some of those intersections, some of your reviews that you're doing, that something like that could be implemented in some of those areas. On Hydro Road, Hickey Road, something like that. Even Pairiri.
Yes, so absolutely. So using those hit sticks to create merge lanes. And if Peter I don't think Peter's online, but it's certainly, we've got the roading engineers looking at that full range of things. And at this stage, really, nothing's off the table, but we're, it's more a question of what can we implement quickly, and then what can we implement in a longer term without creating a huge amount of waste by putting major infrastructure investment.
Yeah.
We'll bring
Thanks.
those plans back to you. So we can have that discussion.
Yeah, thanks, David. And look, we're not trying to do the traffic engineering work here, but Roger, you've got a quick question.
I have got a quick question. It's going back to the main highway again. And you'd mentioned that you've discussed the southern roundabout, and we've got the two roundabouts at Hydro and Karapiro Road, but you said you were undecided yet as to the northern connection with the existing Cambridge bypass. Obviously, when you look at that, is there a chance that you would consider that Tirau Road access to the expressway having actually an access to go north, because we're getting a large amount of traffic, particularly heavy traffic, actually now coming from our south and coming through the Cambridge Township to access the motorway. And,
Yes.
you know, I think when we go back to the original intent of the design of that expressway, things have changed considerably in that time, and so have traffic patterns. And it's really becoming quite an issue trying to get that northern access at that intersection.
Yeah, it's been raised with me before, that one. And as you say, the original intent in the design was never to have that northern access. One of the things we will be doing once the Waikato Expressway opens middle of next month is an awful lot of traffic monitoring to see what the response of traffic is once you put, you know, that expressway road in. And obviously that's perhaps more significant for the Hamilton traffic patterns and also State Highway 3, and how whether we see a change in behaviour in State Highway 3 moving on to State Highway 1. But there will be implications as well for the southern end of the expressway as it stands. So the beauty, I suppose, of the situation when we're in with Cambridge to Piededi is nothing is in concrete yet. So if and when we see those traffic movements, you know, there is scope for, you know, modifying our thinking. I would say at the moment our thinking is not leading that way, but, you know, never rule anything out. We've got a fair amount of time before we start actually building something. So who knows what the traffic movements will look like.
But at least it's registered that there's a comment there
Absolutely,
for
it's
consideration. So that's important. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, David and Jane. Thank you for
No
coming.
problem.
Thanks for coming along.
Thanks for having us.
It's good to get some